So at the time I had a magazine that my parents brought me to from the US, because in Colombia at the time you didn't get any technology magazines in Colombia. So they brought me a magazine, How to Do Your Own Website. And then I was super sad about my dog. And I say, oh, website, it can be over the internet, pictures of my dog and so on. So I took this magazine and I learned how to program a website. That time was just pure HTML, very old school and so on. And that's how I started learning.
Welcome to Sustainability Transformations podcast, where we explore bold ideas to drive positive change for people, the community, and business. And today's guest is Christian Joecker, a full-stack developer and UX designer with many years experience, over 10 years in IoT platforms and web applications for German tech companies. Half Colombian, half German, and currently based in Spain. Christian brings a global lens to software design and sustainable remote work. And the key goal of our discussion is exploring how culture, creativity, and code intersect in the modern tech landscape and how to make it more sustainable, how flexible remote digital careers are shaping a more sustainable world. And so I'm looking forward to this great discussion. Thank you so much for joining, Christian. You've moved 11 times and lived across 4 countries. How has that journey shaped the way you design and build software?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Enock. Yeah, it has been 11 times already that I moved. And of course, that gives you a lot of capacity to adapt, because as Darwin says, if you don't adapt, you die, say it in an extreme way. And that shapes also the way I do things. I try to adapt to all the environments I come. Of course, always keeping an eye in what is expected in this new environment. And I think it's a very important skill nowadays to be able to adapt very fast to the environment, to new technologies, and so on. And to move very fast helped me that. And also a little bit of my Colombian culture, this resilience of just focusing the solution. There's always going to be challenge. Take the challenge of something fun and continue. Don't focus too much on this problem. Oh, this is so bad. Oh, I don't know what to do. Just continue doing that and adapting. That's how I've been changed by so much changes in my life.
I'm always impressed when I hear of a story where how people grew up shaped them. What was it like growing up between the Colombian warmth and the German precision? In UK and other parts of the world, we call it the German engineering, for example, is fairly popular. How does that reflect in your day-to-day work?
Yeah, I take these two opposite cultures mix as something very positive, because they are literally opposite. If you see in the Lewis triangle, that is a very good framework for describing cultures. You have the Asian culture, Colombian and German, Northern European, or Latin American and Northern European. And these two opposite cultures have many positive things that can match very good. Like, for example, you have in this Colombian part, the resilience, the hardworking part that comes often, not always, but often with this thing of just work, and don't work smart in the Colombian culture. But if you take this mentality of the German culture and break this pattern of work, but work smart, so you have resilience and work smart, you can combine it very well in something that when I work with my customers and past employers, they appreciate that this resilience, but keep considering if what you are doing is producing value and is giving you something good or something good to the company or to yourself. And in that sense, that's how I shape. And I have also the advantage that I grew up in Colombia, but I moved when I was 19 to Germany. And I was still in the puberty. You have this brain plasticity until the end of your puberty, normally until 25. So when you have this influence in your life before you are 25, it shapes your way of thinking much stronger as when you have it after. Having these two cultures and being, for example, in a German school in Colombia and having half of my family being German, that changed a lot also in how I do things. Nowadays, I am very rational how I act most of the time, and I try to choose the best things of both of the cultures to take the biggest benefit from it.
That's impressive. Now, in 2025, it's very common to see children or young people into coding. But you started coding at 9 way back. What drew you so young, and what did that early start affect your development?
Yeah, it's actually a funny story I like to tell. When I was 9 years old, I used to have a dog in my house. It was a big Labrador. that was destroying everything in my house, like biting everything, shitting everything, and so on. And my mother was super annoyed, and my father also. So after 1 year, they didn't resist anymore. They were saying to me, "Oh, you should take care of your dog. You are responsible already, and you cannot tell a child with 9 years old to take care of a dog because you cannot take care of yourself. You are not going to take care of a dog." So they didn't resist that, and they gave away my dog. And of course, when you're a child, makes you super sad. So at the time, I had a magazine that my parents brought me to from the US, because in Colombia at the time you didn't get any technology magazines in Colombia. So they brought me a magazine, how to do your own website. And then I was super sad about my dog, and I say, "Oh, website, you can be over the internet pictures of my dog and so on." So I took this magazine and I learned how to program a website. That time was just pure HTML, very old school and so on. And that's how I started learning. And then I did a website with pictures of my dogs, of my dog, and also against my parents, saying how sad I was because they gave away my dog and so on. And based on that, my mother saw also that I have a lot of potential in that, and she put me into courses when I was on holiday in school. Like normally parents, they send you to a camp or something, but I was just learning how to program and so on. And I enjoyed that. And that's how I started developing into that more and more and more. And that's how nowadays I learned to program. That gives me a lot of skills since young age that I still take nowadays as something very beneficial, especially the design part that I studied also graphic design while I was in high school. Yeah. And for the younger people nowadays that you also asked me if they want to learn to code, now it's much easier to learn, but the market is more competitive. But it's with everything in life. If you like it, you just go for it. Try it, experiment, learn on the internet. How that's how every one of us does it. Even me in YouTube. At that time when YouTube exists, some years after, I started using it a lot for learning. And yeah, if you want it, do it.
It's always nice also to have a parent who's able to spot that interest and the desire and then develop it as you go along. How do you balance UX experience and development as a dual skilled freelancer?
Yeah, sure. So, user experience, the abbreviation is UX, is everything what you need to design that makes the application better to use and that makes that application have a sense. Like from the design part, that's the typical when you start doing a little bit like a sketch. That say, if I click this button, I should go to this screen. How can I make the screen more usable and so on? This is the user experience part, and normally is a profession. It's a role by itself. And then you have the development part. You have the front end, that is the user interface, most of the cases. You have the back end, that is the servers, database, and so on. And when you have a person who do both of the things, nowadays they are called full stack developers because they do the full development of the tech stack. Normally there are two professions. So the designer is designing the UX designer, sorry, is designing the screens and tells the developer what to do, and the developer just do it. But the problem with that is you have two silos. One is the designer, like when you have it also when you want to build a house. The designer want to make it nice and pretty, but then you have the construction personnel that will be the developers that needs to build it, and there are limitations to both. For the design, there are some limitations to make it easy to use. And for the development, there is some limitations, technical limitations, of course. So I always like design, as I just told you in my past story why, but I also like the technical part. I also studied mechanical engineering and also business. Like I like to learn different things and merge together everything to make a great digital product. So that's why I worked some years as a UX designer, and then I shifted to programming. That's what I learned also since young age. And I try to combine both of the worlds because I see nowadays a big problem in these two silos, that the designer wants something, the developer wants something, but because there is no understanding in both worlds, there's always discussions. And in every decision you take, there is a lot of trade offs that if you don't know your limitations, the decisions you take are not going to be the right ones. And the nice thing about UX design is that it doesn't evolve as fast as the technological part. So that gives me the advantage that I can keep up to the UX design, and I can continue focusing my learning into the development part that is changing much faster. The designer, you always have this basis, and you can use while you are developing. So I try to combine both of them while I'm working. That's how I do it normally in projects where I shift from one role to the other. And it's very beneficially and also cost effective because you only need to have two people discussing, putting investment here. And
Culture is the way people do things. From your experience, how does the cultural differences shape the approach to communicating to clients and delivering projects within those areas?
yeah, culture shapes a lot how you do, how you act, and the perception of the things you have because there is no reality. We only have a perception. And I see a lot how the people get influenced by their culture they are born. But at top, now you have the working culture. And the interesting thing about that nowadays is that both of the things are being mixed often more and more because the they are interconnected, but they are also separated. For example, you have people that learn a certain degree, get their first job in a certain kind of company, and then after that they went to the next company that were very similarly. They have a specific way of working culture, but then on top you have the culture where they are born. Then on top they have the culture when they are living right now that is also influencing them. So there's a mix of cultures, and you find some patterns often, especially where you are born, like your character, you build it from 0 to 4 years old, and after that, it's very difficult to change. I try to be aware of that, where the people where they are born, and that gives me some hints of how they want to communicate, for example, how they want to work. But most of the things is communication, like say, hey, is this okay if I do it like this, or try to have also a perception because the people often don't realize how they act. So try to be aware of how they act. And this awareness of differences of way of thinking or communicating gives me the possibility to work with different cultures in like very easily. And is that's what is called nowadays the intercultural intelligence. It's getting more and more important because over the internet it's very easy to work with people around the world. And that's some of the advantage that I get from that.
That's good. You mentioned the phrase, "is all perception, there's no reality." Can you unpack that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, we can only get limited information in our brains, but what is happening in the reality is much more. And we get only the information what we focus, and you don't know where is your focus and what is happening in your surrounding, and where is the other person focus and where is happening in their surrounding. And you have the focus maybe in the here and now, but also the focus can be inside of your head with your own ideas. This combination of information is what gives you the perception of what reality is. But I like there is this Venn diagram where I have this perception, and when we merge it, in the middle is the reality. But actually, reality is not existing because, yeah, that's a deep philosophical conversation. But at the end, what we get as a human is only perception. Nothing is real. You cannot say what you see is real, what I see is real.
I'm sure, we can spend a lot of time on that topic, but yeah, that's really good. So you live in Spain, but what was it like working remotely for German companies?
Yeah. So I moved here to Valencia. That's actually also a good story, like 4 years ago. And it was because a colleague of mine, also a good friend of mine nowadays, she was always joking with the owners of my past employer in Germany. Hey, when are we going to open an office in Spain? Of course, everyone loves Spain for vacations. Europe is known for that. And they always, oh, yeah, sure, we can go there and meet in the beach. It would be amazing and so on. I'm always joking around that. And then she told me, yeah, actually, I'm thinking about proposing that seriously because, yeah, why not to go back home and enjoy Spain and so on. And I said to her, hey, yeah, if you want to do it, I need some support. Let's do that. We can propose a project. We'll do the investigation and see if it's worth opening an office for having developers in Spain working for Germany. We did it. We proposed it in the middle of the pandemic to the CEOs. We did a big presentation, a lot of investigation, and so on. And they give us the go, and we went to Spain to open an office in Spain. We started the two of us, and after 2 years, we were 40 people. It was a lot of like a fast growing period for us, and I enjoyed that period a lot. But after that, I decided that I want not to focus too much in management, and I want to experience what is the freelance life. So, old boss of mine called me one day for Christmas to wish me Merry Christmas, and I said, "Hey, I have a company. don't you want to work for me? I said, yeah, sure. I can do it as a freelancer. Why not? So then I started working for him. He has also a German company. And that's how the wheel starts spinning, working for German companies in Spain. And that's how also a dream of mine came true. At the end of every year, I have a very nerdy PowerPoint where I have a strategy for myself and I try to analyze how is the market, what I want to do. And I have written there 7 years before I want to go to Spain because culturally it's a good spot. It's in Europe, it's safe, it has the sun that affects me a lot for my emotional well-being. I am very happy always when there is sun, and I am not so happy when it's a little bit cloudy. So I decided, yeah, I should go to Spain. And everything happened. I came to Spain, and I love that to be able to work in Spain and work for German companies, especially because I love the German culture a lot. This straightforward, this like freedom they give you. Because one strength value I have is a reliability. That when I tell you, hey, tomorrow I will write you and send you this, I get that. And this is not happening in every working culture. And that's something, for example, I appreciate a lot for the working culture in Germany. And I hope I can continue working for the DACH region that is Switzerland, Austria, and Germany.
Well, yeah, that's a brilliant story. It goes to show if you want something, you got to write it down. You got to be focused, and um, once you've put in the effort, then when the opportunity presents itself, in your view, like the digital lifestyle and the nomad lifestyle, how do you see it aligned with sustainability values?
It's a challenge, especially you get how is this challenging is because when you do your footprint calculation as a digital nomad and you put all your data, you realize that flights are 60 to 70% of your footprint. That's why I think it's a challenge. After I was doing this calculation some years ago, I started buying all my flights with CO2 bonuses and balanced bonus. I don't know the real name of that, but these things you can buy to balance the CO2 consumption is not perfect, but it's better than not doing that. For example, you see now Lufthansa does offer 100% environmentally friendly fuel for flights, but then the price of the tickets are twice, and Lufthansa is already expensive. That economically will be challenging for me. So I try to focus in being able to have this digital nomad life that gives you a lot of freedom and gives you a lot of things that gives you awareness of how sustainability is important for you and the world, but also that I try not to affect negatively with my actions the whole sustainability part. So, for example, when I travel, I try to use public transport. I try to use, for example, more train than airplanes, especially for domestic flights. This kind of stuff, I try to help it a little bit with small things I can do. But as I told you before, it's always a challenge as a digital nomad to be 100% sustainable.
Yeah. If you're watching this episode with Christian, send this episode to a friend, colleague, or any creative technologist you might find to benefit from these insights. And let's keep this community growing. Thank you so much. Which tools, Christian, do you decide and frameworks do you decide to use when you have sustainability in mind in your work?
Yeah, the good thing is when you do user-friendly systems, automatically they are sustainable. Because if a system is easier to use or it produces more value because you have a great user experience, then automatically you are using less the system or using it more efficiently and it gets sustainable. And that's my basis for taking decision. When I do web applications, I focus in the user. That's the biggest part. Of course, your client is important. But when your user is happy, your client is going to be happy and you are going to be happy. And based on that, that's how I take decision. The people don't realize now, especially in the web world, that every one of us has a phone and this phone is consuming energy. You need to charge it every day. And everyone in the world nowadays mostly have a phone, a smartphone, and we are using it. I think the average screen time was 5 hours or something like that, something crazy. Like is the device we use the most. And if you do systems that are efficient, you are going to save energy also. And when you are doing web applications, you need to decide if you do it server side or client side. And also when you consider the efficiency of the systems, you are going to automatically save energy. For example, if there is a lot of data that needs to be transmitted, this is going to consume a lot of energy and also is going to make the system slow. So you can decide to do this data processing in the client, that will be your phone, your computer, or to do it in the cloud. If you have a lot of data transmission, do it better in the client. If you don't have a lot of data transmission, then you do it in the cloud. Cloud providers now, they have a lot of pressure to improve their energy consumption and also to be more sustainable with their energy consumption, especially now with the rise of cryptocurrencies and artificial intelligence that makes the energy consumption goes like crazy. For example, now you see browsers like Chrome has local artificial intelligence models that are more efficient because you don't need to exchange so much data to the cloud providers. But even if you send it to the cloud providers, you can see which cloud providers are working more efficiently with energy. And automatically is happening what I'm telling you, performance is related to sustainability. So if you do that, and that's how I think, automatically you are focusing on sustainability. And because you are having this multiplying effect as a developer, that whatever you do is going to be used by hundreds of people, if not millions, then every small thing you do has even a bigger impact when you do in your daily life. Like if I switch off the light, like I say to my mother, like because she's always having the light on, I stop saying that to her because I'm saying, yeah, she's getting angry. She's still forgetting that. Actually, it's worth saying that from time to time. But if I focus more in my work, that has a bigger impact. Then better this energy discussing with my mother to switch off the light than now with LED lights. They don't consume almost any energy. I use better this energy to making more sustainable systems that will have much, much bigger impact than focusing on these small things. And that's how I choose what the tools I use and how I do my work.
Is it part of the training within the industry companies, or you would say it's more self-learning, self-awareness, understanding? Because you were mentioning about the cloud, and I was thinking, wow, that's a lot of knowledge there, which I've never heard. So yeah, I'm curious to know, is it both work, learning, sharing of ideas, or self-learning, out of curiosity? Yeah.
Like it comes from different parts. Once you get this pressure from the governments who is pushing companies, cloud providers, and people to be more sustainable, what is a great thing, at least in Europe. Then you have also the mindset of the people working with that. The person who is throwing normally garbage to the street is the person who, when they develop, they are not caring a lot to sustainability. And also the company's culture also has a big influence. How the management behaves, in my experience, also spread through the whole company, the decisions they take. And also the users, how much do they care? Are they willing to pay this extra for maybe having a more sustainable product? So all of these have a big influence of what telling you, and there's no single source or that's something I learned or something. Like it's different factors influencing that.
There's a lot of talk about AI. Now, in my field in sustainability, I know the AI is going to augment, is going to enhance. The AI is more of a tool. If I take the energy consumption for companies, a lot of companies, they get their energy bill in PDFs or some hard copies, and only a few probably would export that into a spreadsheet. What I shared was more background. What is your thoughts on that, and how it's going to evolve? Like I said, I think it's going to evolve, augment, not replace.
Yeah, if AI is going to replace us developers or designers, I don't have a clear position on that because I don't have the glass ball to know it. I have two thoughts on that. The first thought is the only way to tell a machine exactly how do they need to behave is with code. So when you are telling a language model how do they need to do things with human language, is not precise enough because this language model is going to translate that into code with a lot of assumptions, and then the machine is going to do what they should do based on the first prompt you said. So there is a lot of information that is getting lost. So when I do software and I'm going to tell a machine what to do, I need to transmit what is in my brain to the machine. And the most efficient way is to do that with code. The problem is that code is a language like English that we are speaking. Code is another language that you need to learn. Takes many years to learn that, to use that efficiently. But in theory, it's not efficient to tell a language model what I want to do with human language. It's more precise to do it with code because of how it's structured. So in that case, it's possible but not efficient that artificial intelligence is going to replace me as a developer. But on the other perspective, this language model has a lot of assumptions and more experience that I have in many other fields that maybe can take assumptions more precise than I have. So that's where the challenge comes. So maybe the machine is going to do code better than I do because they can take better assumptions what I do. But every case is a specific case. So there is a difference in which I don't know how much extra information do I need to give to this language model so it behaves in the right way and produce me the end result I want, or I do it myself and I'm faster. So that's why I cannot tell how this technology is going to evolve and how I'm going to evolve with this technology. This is the next part. We have for the first time a technology that is learning from us, and we are learning from this technology. So it's going to produce a loop, and we don't know where is this going to end because to train a language model is very, very expensive. And we are going to learn already from these models, but the knowledge they have now is before they exist. But now we have new knowledge with their existence that they need to be trained on already. So this is going to create a loop, and based on that, is going to be always necessary to have a human, that the human learns from the technology from the human, and the loop is going to be necessary. Right now, as in my day-to-day business, it helps me a lot. I use it a lot, and it's going to enhance my capabilities. If in the future it's going to replace me or not, it's impossible to say.
Now that's a very balanced assessment, and yeah, you've helped clarify that loop. What advice would you give looking at the final sections now, if you are someone who's listening, maybe living outside the traditional tech hubs, like the popular ones, based on your experience? What advice would you give someone who wants to start a tech career, but they live outside these popular tech hubs?
Yeah, I would tell them do it. Just try it, do it. There was a big, drama, not, but a bit of a topic going on in the internet about all the companies that they don't want to work with people remotely anymore. They're bringing back the people to the offices. But in my experience, there is still plenty of opportunities, and there is still plenty of companies who see the value for that. You just need to look for that and more precise and put more effort into that. Like the people were used in the tech industry that the job offers come from the sky, but this is not the case anymore. But if you look for that, it's still a great market. You can still do it, and you can still have a great lifestyle. What I need to be, or what the people need to be conscious of, is the lack of human contact is going to hit you most of the time. So don't isolate yourself and work remotely 100% of the time, because we are people, we need people. I'm an introvert myself, and I still have the feeling I need to meet people in real life. That's why I go to a co-working space, for example, to have this balance. And what I like about a co-working space is that you are with the people with who you want to be with, and not who you must be, like happens in a company. Like you must be nice with your colleagues because they are colleagues, and a relationship is important. But in a co-working, you talk to the people you want to, and it's very nice because you go for a coffee with a friend every day. So I want to encourage the people to be aware of not isolating themselves. But if that's a lifestyle you want, like to work remotely and so on, and not live in these hubs, you can do it totally.
What's your final thought for the listeners, whether it's individual or a tech leader or a digital sustainability enthusiast?
Yeah, don't forget about the environment. I think now we have different priorities, especially with the current political situation worldwide. It was very sad for me to be in a conference in Berlin some months ago. There was about green tech, and the conference was empty. Half of the companies didn't appear, even if they book a booth there. Not a lot of people were attending that anymore. So it was sad to see, and I think it's related to the priorities right now where we are at. And I think we should still focusing into that, especially when we work doing things in the digital work. Our impact in the world is much bigger because we create things that is used by many people that are not creators, that are users. So we have a big responsibility on that, and we should not forget about environment, because I see it's every summer after summer is biting us already. So we should care about it.
If listeners like your work, where can they find you or where can they find your work, please?
The thing is, my last name is difficult to write. So the easiest way is go to my website. It's Joker, like the Joker from the Batman, but with CK, JOCKER .dev, from developer, the abbreviation DEV, the joker.dev. They can find me there. Or in LinkedIn, Christian Joecker, but with two dots over the O. That is difficult to write for many people without the right keywords. So that's why better on my website, or if you find me on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Christian, for your time, the incredible insight, and for the audience and the listeners. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.